My stepdaughter knew her father had gone back to her mother. They were spending time together while she was cheating on me. But she's devastated when she arrives at the birthday party I canceled. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. I am 33 years old and have been married to my husband, Jack, aged 40, for just over 2 years. We met at a club and connected immediately. It didn't take long to make our relationship official. After months of dating, we got engaged and then married. The first year of marriage was pretty normal, but then everything fell apart. We argued constantly, and sometimes I felt like my presence simply irritated him. When I met Jack, he was a bartender at a local bar, barely making enough to support his daughter, Clarissa. I admired him very much for having primary custody of his daughter, which meant she lived with him full-time and only saw her mother, Lila, during the school holidays. Jack told me that Lila was practically absent in Clarissa's life. Knowing this, I decided to take on the role of a mother figure for Clarissa. Even though I am not a mother, I always make sure that we have a great relationship. While she doesn't call me mom, I've told her that she can if she wants to. I always attend her parent-teacher meetings, volleyball games, and debate club events because her dad can't always make it. When Jack lost his job at the bar, I managed to get him a job at my uncle's marketing agency as an assistant. I know it may seem like a lot, but believe me, my best friend, Jody, has always told me that I am a very generous person who likes to help when I can. I come from a middle-class family, and I know not everyone has the privilege of financial stability. Jack literally had to build himself from scratch because of his difficult past and abusive family. And yes, Jack's family is another matter altogether. Jack and I are in a bad place, and that has affected me deeply. I love him, but his recent behaviors have been very suspicious and worrying. He spends nights in the office, and sometimes he doesn't even come home. He has become distant. Before, he was very communicative, but now I feel like I'm talking to a wall. I'm grateful that Clarissa hasn't noticed our fights and problems. I do my best to make sure she doesn't see us arguing, because I don't want her to think I'm going to leave her father. Her therapist mentioned to me that she has abandonment issues due to her mother's absence, so I try to make sure she doesn't feel abandoned. Recently, Clarissa came home from school looking a little nervous and told me that she hoped we would do something fun for her 16th birthday. I smiled at her because I had been waiting for this moment for a long time. I told her that I had been saving for over a year to throw her a big party. Her joy was indescribable, and she kept thanking me. I told her I would talk to her father to keep him informed. That night, Jack came home late, which has become common. When I mentioned the party to him, he didn't even let me finish before saying that he and Clarissa didn't have money to organize something big. This bothered me, because he knew how much Clarissa's 16th birthday meant to her. It's a big milestone, and she's been talking about it all year. Her friends have had parties, and I knew she wished for something similar. I was disappointed that her parents hadn't saved anything, but of course, Jack has always been irresponsible with money and has a gambling problem, which I discovered after marriage because I had to pay off his debt. After he finished complaining about his financial problems, I said that money was not a problem and that I would take care of everything. This made him extremely happy. He began thanking me and told me how much he loved me, which didn't bother me, but it had been a long time since he'd said that. He told me he'd be happy to help in any way he could because it was something important. I must admit that I was a little suspicious of his change in attitude, but decided to go ahead with it. However, what he suggested next completely threw me. He suggested that we include Clarissa's mother in the birthday plans. I flatly refused and told him that I didn't want her to be involved. He then told me that I had to be realistic and not forget that Lila was Clarissa's biological mother. I rolled my eyes and left the room because I didn't like or understand why he had mentioned the word biological, as if I wasn't aware of it. I have been there for Clarissa much more than Lila, and Jack knew it perfectly well. A few days later, I called Jody and explained everything. She asked me why I was paying for Clarissa's birthday party when she had parents who worked. I mentioned their financial problems, and she told me I was doing too much and that I should be careful. I tried to understand why she said that, but then she explained it to me. She said, "Doesn't it seem unfair that you're the one paying for the party when Clarissa isn't even your daughter?" I stopped her and reminded her that I had always considered myself a mother figure for Clarissa and that I wasn't the typical evil stepmother. This led us to a back-and-forth argument, and finally, I hung up the phone because I didn't expect the conversation to take that direction. However, that call left me with doubts. So, what do you think? Am I doing too much by paying for Clarissa's party, or should I allow her mother to be part of the planning? Update 1. I'm here with an update. Well, it's been a week, and everything has been pretty much okay. I thought I would be better, but I haven't been feeling very well, and I don't have an exact reason why I feel this way. I have started planning Clarissa's birthday party. I told Jack I didn't want Lila to be a part of the planning unless she was willing to contribute financially. His response was very surprising and a little comforting. First, he apologized for what he said during the argument and explained that he had reacted that way because he was very stressed at work, which I understood. Later, he told me that Lila had no part in anything because she almost never does anything, which made me happy to hear. I accepted his apology, and then I began to tell him what I had planned for Clarissa. I asked him if he wanted to come with me to see the decorations for the party, but he told me he had to go to work and finish a very important task. I found this strange, especially since it was Saturday. I made a mental note to ask my uncle why he was making Jack work so much. Clarissa and I went out and spent the whole day getting quotes for the party. She decided she wanted a party at a hotel and that we would use the outdoor pool to entertain the guests. She also wanted to book rooms for herself and some of her friends at the hotel so they could get ready, put on makeup, and then have a sleepover after the party. After finishing everything, I took her to our favorite restaurant, and we had an early dinner. She couldn't stop talking about the party and how excited she was. I asked her if she had the guest list yet, and she said, "Oh, yeah," then showed it to me on her phone. I felt a knot in my stomach because Jack's family doesn't like me, and I have no idea why. The only person I have a good relationship with is his sister, April. I knew that with him coming, things were going to be a little awkward, but this wasn't about me or them. It was about Clarissa. I noticed she hadn't put her mother on the list, and I asked her why. She told me she didn't know if her mother would even show up because she almost never does. It broke my heart to hear her say that, so I decided to be a mature person. I told her to just add her mom and that I would talk to her dad to ask him to have a conversation with her. However, when we got home and were about to go to sleep, I noticed a very strange mark around Jack's neck. I also saw lipstick stains on his shirt. I asked him about the two things I saw. He told me the lipstick stain was mine, which I believed because I remembered using a lipstick of that color. But he completely ignored me when I asked him about the mark. He told me he was tired from work and just wanted to rest, so I let it slide. Update 2. I honestly have no idea how I've been handling everything because I'm an emotional disaster. I'm pretty bad with everything that has happened, but at least I have you to tell so that you can give me an impartial opinion. Clarissa, Jack, and I went out to get ice cream, talking about the party as it was quickly approaching. Almost everything was finished and paid for. Clarissa had already sent out the invitations and was waiting for people to respond, RSVP. Clarissa hadn't mentioned anything to me about her mother, so I assumed she hadn't been invited. When we got home, I decided it was time for my special announcement. I asked them to sit down, but Jack started complaining, saying he had work to do at the office. I ignored him and looked directly at Clarissa. I told her I had a surprise for her. She looked confused and asked what else could surprise her. I told her that since she was still in the top 5 of her class and working on getting her license, I was going to buy her a car. She screamed with excitement and started jumping for joy. Jack, on the other hand, stayed silent with a blank facial expression. I thought he would be excited because he has always complained about how unsafe the bus is and how tiring it is to carry her everywhere. He eventually came out of his trance, thanked me, and asked what kind of car I was thinking of buying. I told them they could go look at cars at the local dealership. Unfortunately, the day I had booked for the visit coincided with a very important meeting I had, so I thought they could go together to see the cars and then tell me which one she liked. Plus, Jack knew a lot more about cars than I did. A few days passed, and I was at home attending my virtual meeting while Jack and Clarissa had gone to see the cars. Well, since my meeting ended earlier than expected, I decided to check how much credit was left on the emergency card I had given Jack in case Clarissa saw a car she really wanted and he needed to use the card to pay for it. When I tell you I almost fell out of my chair, I mean it. Seriously. Jack had been using the card weekly for unnecessary expenses. I saw that he had been charging the card at restaurants and hotels. Then I saw that he had even paid rent somewhere and my body started to itch. I grabbed my car keys and went to the dealership. I wasn't going to wait for Jack to come back to find out what was going on. What I saw at the dealership was Jack and Lila being very affectionate and touching each other. What made it even worse was that Clarissa was there, watching them and smiling. It broke my heart. I decided not to react impulsively, so I drove back home and immediately checked Jack's computer. The password was easy because it was Clarissa's birth date. Jack had been having an affair with Lila. All those supposed long nights at the office were actually nights with her. And guess who was paying Lila's rent with the emergency card? I was furious. I didn't know what to do, so I acted impulsively. I left Jack's computer exactly where I found it and went out to my sister-in-law's house. I had seen that Jack had been making fun of certain family events that I had clearly not been invited to, despite being his wife. This meant that his family was fully aware of the affair and had been supporting it. Well, let's make sure they were from the beginning. I asked her if she knew how long Clarissa had known about her parents' affair. She sighed and told me she had no idea when Clarissa had found out, but that she had been spending time with both parents. After everything I had done for her, this was how she repaid me. I knew I had to go back before Jack and Clarissa started calling me, but I also had to do something. They had taken me for a fool for too long. I didn't thank April for what she told me, since I also trusted her, and she had been hiding all these things from me. When I got home, I found Jack and Clarissa watching television. I acted completely normal, as if I knew absolutely nothing. They didn't bother to ask where I had been, but they started telling me about the cars they had seen and which one they liked. Of course, it was one of the most expensive cars. I just smiled and nodded. And here I am, pretending that everything is okay. I don't know if it's right or not, but at the same time, I think I have the advantage now because they don't know that I know. I'm going to take the time to decide my next step and read about the best tips without confronting them before calling a lawyer. Should I call a lawyer without talking to them? At the end of the day, I'm getting a divorce, but I also want to have the advantage. I'm very hurt, and now I just want to get even. Update 3. I've been reading, analyzing, and planning everything as I mentioned in my previous post. So, please understand why it took me so long to make a new update. I have thanked some commentators, but now I want to thank everyone before we move on to the update. Clarissa's birthday finally arrived, and everyone was super excited. Lila was at our house because, a few days ago, I had told Clarissa that it wouldn't be fair if she wasn't at the party. They were surprised, but I could tell that, deep down, they were very happy, especially when I said that she could meet us at the house and that we would go together to the hotel. When we were about to leave, I acted as if I had forgotten something and told them that I would meet them at the venue. I winked at Clarissa, giving her the illusion that I was going to look for her car. Jack stayed behind and asked me what I had forgotten. I whispered that I was going to look for the car. Once they were finally gone and out of sight, my 2 cousins and Jody arrived at my house. One of my cousins started changing the locks while I packed a suitcase. I wasn't going to attend that party because there was no party. I had canceled everything from the venue to the cake and everything else. If they wanted to play these games, I was going to show them who was really in charge. I headed to the airport with my friends to spend the weekend in Las Vegas. Once I got to the airport, Jack and Clarissa were blowing up my phone with calls. Then, I saw a message from Jack saying that the hotel manager had told them there were no reservations for Clarissa's party. It was at that moment that I decided to turn off my phone. Jody told me she was proud of me and that it was time for me to stop putting them first. My phone stayed off the entire time we were in Vegas. I knew they couldn't get into my house because the locks had been changed, which meant they had no access to any of their stuff. It felt good to know that I had played the same game on them that they had played on me, that I decided to turn my phone on when we got back to the airport in our city. My phone was full of notifications, messages, and missed calls. When I went on social media, I saw that Jack was defaming me, calling me evil, claiming that I had never loved him or Clarissa, and letting everyone know that I had ruined his daughter's birthday. Well, I responded to his post with screenshots of the transactions he had made on my card. I also exposed his affair with Lila, posting photos I had taken of their conversations. That's when people started criticizing him. Afterward, I headed home with Jody and my cousin. A few hours later, a drunk Jack showed up. As soon as I got out of the car, he started insulting me with all kinds of words. But what he said next was what hurt me the most. He screamed that he had never loved me and that he had always loved Lila. He admitted that he had only been using me for my money. I slapped him and asked my cousin to escort him off the property. At first, he resisted, but when my cousin told him it was better not to mess with him, he decided to leave, or rather, they forced him. While I was calming down after all the fuss, I saw a message from Clarissa that made me cry. Then I started to wonder if I had done the right thing. The message was an apology for everything. She admitted that she knew her father was cheating on me with her mother. She wrote that she had wanted to tell me, but her father had threatened her and reminded her that if she exposed him, she wouldn't have the birthday party she really wanted. So, that's all that's been going on, which is no small thing, as you'll see. Update 4. I'm in the process of divorcing Jack. Fortunately, we didn't get married under a marital partnership. My family had threatened to disinherit me if I did, and now I'm very grateful for that because it means he doesn't get anything. I then found out through social media that Risa is pregnant with Jack, and April confirmed it. I thought this would lead them to get back together, but that is not the case. Their relationship has always been toxic, and bringing another baby into it was not going to fix things, especially since my uncle fired Jack as soon as my mother told him what had happened. The issue of money had been one of the many problems between them. I met Clarissa, and we talked about everything that has happened. I won't say that I have reconciled with her because everything that happened still hurts, but she was clearly manipulated by her father, the adult who should have set an example. So, I told her that she can count on me. Maybe, in another circumstance, I wouldn't have done it, but she never blamed me for canceling her party. She understood that what she had done by not telling me was wrong, and that she deserved the consequences as punishment. We have remained on good terms. However, from now on, I will not pay for anything more for her, which I have told her. As I said, this girl is very mature for her age because she has understood that. Don't get me wrong, I know that not telling me was wrong. But if there is someone I should be angry with, it is Jack, who is already paying the price. From this marriage, he will only come out with what he entered, almost nothing. Now, all that remains is to leave the divorce behind and concentrate on my life. Update 5. Jack continues to pay for what he did, and karma has reached laughter. To begin with, many have asked me about Clarissa, and if she still lives with her father after the whole ordeal. Since she is a minor, she still needs to live with a responsible adult. No, I have not adopted her, although some comments suggested I might. We have been through a lot together, and rebuilding our bond would be complicated. However, after what he did, which I will talk about later, maybe I should consider it. For now, Clarissa is living with her aunt, April. I don't talk to her aunt, primarily after finding out that she knew about my ex's infidelity. However, I do talk to Clarissa via text messages from time to time, and she tells me how life is with her aunt. At least April, thought of questionable morals, does not seem to be an irresponsible adult like her parents. The divorce has not been easy, but Jack's infidelity played in my favor. This is where Clarissa had a crucial role. She testified in my favor as a witness to her father's affair with Laughter and also provided evidence, such as photos and messages from their outings together. That's why I say I could have adopted her, because in the end, she did a lot for me. However, I think that living with her aunt is the best thing for her at this time. Since the divorce trial, Clarissa has been staying with April because her father kicked her out of the house where they lived together. It doesn't surprise me at all. Even when he was working, Jack was never able to prioritize his daughter, not even for things that were his responsibility, like paying for her birthday party. At the end of the day, I have been more of a mother and father to Clarissa than her own parents, and I think that is one of the reasons she decided to support me. She felt guilty for what happened, but she also had loyalty toward me because I always treated her like a daughter. Clarissa's loyalty toward me did not end there. She also helped me with a lawsuit to recover the money I used to pay Jack's gambling debts. During his outings as a family with her parents, Clarissa had heard things that turned out to be very helpful in the case. She did this in part because she was very hurt after her father kicked her out of the house. They had arguments before this happened, during which Clarissa told him that the right thing to do would be to sign the divorce papers and accept his mistakes. However, Jack decided to fight the divorce, which led Clarissa to take my side completely. In fact, it was Clarissa who gave me the idea to sue him. She knew from the things she had overheard that Jack was planning to use my past help as a platform to move forward while forming a new life with Laughter. He had even said that I could now divorce him quietly because he already had a job and no debts. Thanks to me. My lawyer used that information to build the case. Thanks to Clarissa and the skill of my lawyer, we managed to get the judge to order Jack to return all the money I paid to cover his gambling debt. Now, as I think about all this while sitting in my garden, I realize that Jack simply traded his gambling debt for a debt to me. It's not so different, except that this time it includes interest, thanks to my lawyer as a form of compensation. Remember when I said that Jack left the marriage with what he brought? Well, I was wrong. He left with less. He was in the red. I also found out that he tried to get a new job at another agency now that he has experience in the sector, but the owner turned out to be an old friend of my uncle, who had also been unfaithful in the past. When he found out about Jack's story, he flatly denied him the job. I know it is not right to rejoice in the misfortunes of others, but there is something satisfying about seeing how bad things happen to bad people. To top it off, Jack is now obliged to send money for Clarissa's support since he is still legally her father. The same applies to Laughter. It doesn't matter that both of them want to distance themselves from her because, as her parents, they still have the obligation to cover her basic needs, such as her education, food, and clothing. What do you think about this story? Have you ever experienced something similar, or do you know someone who has? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories.